What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of a Lifestyle of Eden podcast. I am your host, Nick Tognetti, and today I am super excited for the guest that we get to have. It is Dr. Brian Smoot. He is a chiropractor. I'm going to let him formally introduce himself, but it's not just to me, it's not just Dr. Brian Smoot. It's actually my cousin, Brian Smoot. I've gotten to know Brian my whole life. I know him as a person, I know him as a professional, and I know his passions, and it lines directly up with everything y'all hear me always talking about in the Facebook group or anything else. And it's really functional nutrition, functional medicine, functional minded, preventative concepts, holistic living, all these different things. So we're going to dive into all these things, and we're going to dive into it from the spin or direction of chiropractic, which maybe you haven't heard, but I'm going to share my experiences with it. I'm going to let Brian share his expertises with it and everything else. So Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Nick, so happy to be here. And this is going to be a great conversation. So look forward to it.
Amen. I want you to just give give the audience a little understanding of who you are, what you do. You've got your own practice. How long have you been in this? What got you into it? Just give us the understanding of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my original health kind of direction started way back in high school. I went to North Salinas High, and at that high school, they call it a health academy. So it was a curriculum within the curriculum that focused more on health concepts. And we had some other auxiliary trips. We got to tour the hospitals. We got to job shadow certain positions in hospitals. I remember going to the farm. I'd say maybe I want to be a pharmacist. And I was at the pharmacy that day, and God, it was so boring. They were just counting pills and handing out pills and counting more pills and handing out pills. I'm like, gosh, this is just, maybe I don't want to be a pharmacist. And then I job shadowed a radiologist. And actually, I thought that was pretty fascinating, looking at different images all day, and the skill level it took to identify things on CAT scans, etc. I went to so way back this is sophomore, junior year in high school, I knew I wanted to be something to do with the health field. So then I went to Fresno State, which is a couple-hour drive from my hometown in the middle of California, and I started studying biology there. And I started taking courses: biology, physiology, anatomy, chemistry, physics. I was undeclared freshman, sophomore year, but I eventually declared biology, and I still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But I loved the health field, and I knew it was a growing industry. I loved helping people. And then so it was about my junior year, or maybe middle between junior and sophomore year, I met a chiropractor who was from my hometown, was actually a friend of our uncle, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And his name is Dr. Luis Ocon, O-C-O-N, or Ocon. And we still talk to this day. I just talked to him a couple of days ago, speaking of Dr. Ocon. But I sat in his office one day after I met him a week or two later. I went to his office, and he's really the one who planted the seed, who educated me, who really opened my eyes on the perspective of what chiropractors do, and the intention of the adjustment and the intention of helping someone, versus the perspective of the allopathic world, let's call Western medicine or allopathic medicine, which you and I, Nick, talk to each other often about the different philosophies of the two industries. And so that blew my mind. And then I got on his table. Mind you, I had no pain, no back pain, no headaches, no any really symptoms. I just wanted to experience what an adjustment was. And he gave me an adjustment. And I got off on that table. I said, what the fuck was that? I feel so good. And again, I didn't have any pains. I just was like blown away on the experience of human touch to my body. And I'm like, I feel freer, I feel lighter, I feel clear, I felt just revigorated in seconds. And so I'm like, whatever that was, I want to do that. I want people to experience that. I want people to know what that was. And again, pain management is one thing, but really activating the life within us is a whole different level of care that we can provide. So that moment forward was really a change in trajectory of where I went. So I went back to he said, hey, if you're going to go to this industry, here's where I want you to go, because it's the most philosophically sound program. At the time, there was only 17 schools in the nation. Now there's less because they're getting swallowed by other industries and conversation. But I went to Life Chiropractic from Fresno State. I went and figured out what do I need to study to finish this degree, and then get over to Fresno to Life Chiropractic College. So I ended up graduating with a biology degree in physiology and anatomy, with the emphasis in physiology anatomy, which set me up really well for chiropractic college. I graduated Fresno State in 2003, and I started chiropractic college in that fall, 2003. And you can take two different types of programs, either a 3 or 3.5 year program there. And I finished in 3 years because I was just focused and crushed it.
Yeah.
Very intense program. You're in your seat from 8:30, actually before 7:30 to 3 or 4 o'clock in your chair, minus the lunch or a couple breaks. But it's a lot of studying, a lot of ass in the chair time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I finished 2006, and I've been practicing since. So
when did you officially start Smoot Family Chiropractic?
So I went back, and Dr. O'Con always said, hey, if he's a good soul, and he got me in this industry, and he said, hey, I always need help. If you want to work for me, come back, and there's always a job offer here if you want it. And I did. I came back to my hometown, Salinas, and worked for him for a year. And I learned a lot. I learned what I want to do. And I also learned what I don't want to do in practice, right? And different business things that I picked up, and educational and communicational things. A year later, I left his practice and started my own. That was 2006. Or sorry, I finished in 6, basically worked for him all of 7. And in 2008,
Yeah. Okay.
I opened my own.
Yeah. Wow. So for 16 years, I was going to say, because that makes sense, because I'm 30 now. I would have been 14 then, and it's been as long as I could remember. So I was 14 when you opened it then. So yeah, that makes sense. So I want to come,
yeah.
I want to, what'd you say?
No, yeah, I was trying to think the math, that would be 6. Yes, 18. This year's 18 years. In fact, yeah, it was September 08. So that would be 16 years. I'm sorry. This year, 16 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to come back to the chiropractic, because I have a lot that I want to discuss that I don't discuss enough, honestly, and I'm going to start pushing it more on my content in regards to the nervous system and parasympathetic and sympathetic. That's like peanut butter and jelly with chiropractic, and I know that. And so I want to come back to that, because I think that so many of the people that I deal with, they've got gut issues. If you have a gut issue, you are automatically in sympathetic, because parasympathetic is rest and digest. So if your digestion system, you're already sympathetic. So this goes for all of them, and they don't even know how much they need this. So I want to circle back to that in a minute. But before we get into that, because it's going to help weave us into that, is I want to hear, obviously, now I live 10 minutes down the road from you, and we have these conversations constantly, is how did you get into holistic lifestyle, holistic nutrition, health? Obviously, your kids run no medications. You don't do the vaccine stuff. Y'all stay very y'all are not conventionally swayed, all of that. So where did that begin? Because when I was talking with Astrid, your wife, she and I, when we were on a hike about a couple weeks ago, I said, Astrid, I've known you my whole life, and I've never known this story, but like, how did you and Brian get on this journey? Have you always been there? And she had started it and said, no, like when I met Brian was already in this perspective and mindset. But she said she was like, no, what the doctor says we do. She was very doctor based. And then after just being with you for a little bit, obviously you converted her to, no, we're going to go more holistic, and we're going to just this, that, and the other. So explain where that stemmed from, and just your experience with it and your passions about it. And feel free to just share it, because everybody hears how I talk about it. So go ahead and just be unfiltered here.
Yeah. So I think there was already a seed before I even knew what I wanted. Before I even knew the concept, what you're referring to. I think I was raised in that degree. And I say that because I was probably on antibiotics as a child, maybe twice, maybe 3 times.
Wow.
Point being, my mom really planted this seed. And my parents divorced at a young age, and we mostly spent time with our mom. We saw our dad quite a bit, obviously, but most of the time was with my mom, living at mom's house. And if we got sick, it was like, hey, here's some soup, go to bed. We didn't go to the doctor very often. I could probably say as a child, I remember as a teenager, and maybe once or twice as under 10 years old. I'm going to say on one hand, I can count how many times I went to a pediatrician to get some help. Okay.
Wow.
So we were pretty healthy kids, because my mom fed us well, and we exercised, and we were athletic. We didn't have cell phones and crap that we have today. making kids sick, and processed food was probably another thing in the 80s and than it is today. But I think I didn't take any aspirin as a kid. I would take Tylenol. It was just, I think I already felt that way because the way I was raised. And then as I met Dr. Ocon, he taught me the philosophy, like in the 2-minute conversation, which we'll talk about right now. But so I think he opened that door. But then once you get to chiropractic school, you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people that you go to these seminars, you go to these talks, you're having these conversations at lunch, at breaks, at home, because you're living with other chiropractic students. You just get submerged in these ideals. And then your mind there's a whole nother world that you don't even understand is out there unless you're constantly talking about it, constantly reading about it, observing, looking at the studies scientifically, philosophically. So anyway, let's dive into that, because that's really, I think, the interesting concept is chiropractic. Actually, let me back up a little bit. If you don't mind, I want to tell you a little history on chiropractic, because
go ahead. Yeah, please.
This is fascinating. So chiropractic was started in Davenport, Iowa, by a guy named D.D. Palmer. Yeah, and his son was named B.J. Palmer. Daniel David, his initials. The son, B.J. died in the 60s. And his dad, in the late 1800s, is credited for discovering chiropractic. Now, there have been bone setters. There have been, back in the Egyptian days, there's evidence of people manipulating and structurally changing the spine and working on the body. That millennial, but the actual defined profession and these set of philosophical values that kind of define the profession was really organized in the late 1800s. What happened was this D. Palmer was a professor. He was actually had a radio show. He's a very interesting character. He had all kinds of auxiliary things. He was a magnetic healer. He was a body worker. He was, some would have called him a kook, right? He was a crazy out there guy, but he was a thinker. So one day there was a janitor at his university that was in the closet, and something fell on his head and it got injured in this, something falling on him. And he lost his hearing to some degree, went deaf from this trauma. D.D. Palmer was studying the anatomy, studying the bones, studying the connection to the brain, the body, how healing takes, how does healing happen, the function of the nervous system. And he had this concept of nerve A to B, if this pinched nerve, let me experiment. So this janitor, African-American, let's call him a slave at that time, he told him, he said, hey, I want to do this on you. So I want you to lay down. I'm going to perform this what we now know as we call an adjustment on his neck. And it was very violent back then. And it almost looked like a guillotine chop where he's on his hands and knees and his head's on a board, and is very violent to his neck. And I imagine it hurt like hell, but his hearing came back.
Wow. So
he was like, holy crap, we found the cure to deafness.
Jeez.
So what he did is he advertised, hey, we found the cure to deafness. Everybody line up, come to Davenport, Iowa. We're going to cure all people that are deaf. And people came, and he did that same routine over and over, and no other person did it help, not one. So it's crap. What happened in this person that helped their hearing that did not happen in these several hundred people that did not do a damn thing, right? So it went back to the drawing board. What that created this scientific process, really, to be honest, and that's how it started. It's this miraculous change of the function of the nervous system based on relieving the pressure on the nerve, and from then it took off. Now, again, I have some miraculous stories I could tell you one day about things in my office, but you can have some. It's not the cure to all. At that point, it was the cure to the pinched nerve that was creating the deafness in his ear. So 50 or 60 years ago, but let's see, it was in the 40s, 30s and the 40s that we became more of a organized profession. His son took the ball and ran with it. B.J. Palmer's really well known in the industry as the developer of chiropractic. The dad, the founder, his son, the developer, and he created the legislation, pushed it through government to create an entity. Because even up until the 70s, chiropractors were getting arrested for practicing medicine without a license. And our whole argument, well, the argument at the time was, no, we're not practicing medicine. This is a different art. We don't prescribe, we're not doing surgery, we don't give drugs, we're treating certain conditions based on structure equals function. So that's how it started. Now, when I was exposed to it, this is how what got me excited was there's a concept of the power. Now, this is a saying you'll hear. I can't credit. This is a saying that I've heard over and I love it. And I actually had it on my wall at one time in my office. The power that made the body heals the body. The power that made the body heals the body.
Yep.
Now, then you can get very religious real quick. Like, what power? What is the power? Is there power? Is there a God? It doesn't matter. The power that made the body heals the body. And when I talk to clients, I'm not trying to go down a spiritual path. What I say is, if you can understand that process is there and it's there all the time, 100% of the time, it's never not there. And we give simple examples. Like, if you get a cut on your hand, what happens to that cut? It heals every time. This is weird to think about. No one thinks about it this way, but have you ever had a cut that does not heal? Every time. Now, if you cut the fingers completely off, of course, you're not growing new fingers, but still there's skin it's gonna heal around that. So that's a concept. It's called limitation of matter. If you don't have the finger, you're not gonna heal the finger back, but it's still gonna nub up. It's still, the process is still gonna occur. Now, in that cut, there's an immune response. There's a fibrinogen response. There's blood vessels that will grow back. There's skin that will go back. Scar tissue will go in. There's actually a cleanup crew who cleans out the scar tissue and makes it better, right? There's all these processes that are going on with you not even thinking about it. It's such a beautiful, innate process. So we call it innate intelligence. Right. Our industry calls it innate intelligence. There's a process within us that controls everything. It's absolutely perfect every time. So that's an idea. It's non-tangible. So how do you take that non-tangible idea and create it into the physical? Like, what in us is controlling this? And the answer is, you said it earlier, the nervous system controls every process that we have, including that cut. Hormonal. There's the physical connection to our muscles, to our stomach. So the words that are coming out of my mouth are derived from my brain, right? It's every process, every moment of every part of the day. And we does it without the conscious thought. I'm not telling my heart to beat. I'm not telling my lungs to breathe. It's doing it.
That saying that you said, the process that made the body heals the body, it's something I actually say all the time. I always say, listen, what will get you healed will keep you healed. And I say that in regards to, hey, listen, whenever we're fixing your gut issues or your PCOS or your Hashimoto's, what we do to get you in remission from your autoimmune disease is what's going to keep you in remission from your autoimmune disease. Like, you can't go back to the old crap lifestyle. You know what I mean? So that's interesting thing.
So if the patient, if your client, if the public will understand that there's a beautiful process that happens in us, if we can honor that, if we can listen to that, if we can work with that process, if we ignore it. Let's talk about what ignoring means, right? If we dishonor it, if we treat it bad. Now, so what does ignoring it mean? So I always think about, there's symptoms versus problems. A symptom, let's say, is high blood pressure. That is a reading of your arm, of putting a cuff on it and understanding what happened. Now, if I will tell you, and I tell people, I don't want to freak them out right away, but once I have a rapport with someone, I will tell them, and you can tell your clients the same kind of perspective. If you have high blood pressure, you are supposed to have high blood pressure. Your body is responding to a stimulus and multi-stimulus over time. So if you ate McDonald's every day for 6 years, you will have, and I'm exaggerating, but you understand, your high blood pressure is a response to its environment. It's supposed to be high. It's a pump. It's trying to push blood around the body. That's all it does. And so it needs to be stronger to push the blood around your body.
And it's it's the language that your body is using to speak to you, to tell you, hey, something's wrong. It's your body's trying. The symptoms is your body's way of talking to you, and we ignore it all the time. That's good.
All the time. So now, is it a good thing? No, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's a good thing that your body's responding to the crap or lack of activity or the crap you're putting in it, right? So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's
Yeah.
not a good thing, but nor was the McDonald's that you just pounded. Okay. So in the allopathic world, getting back to your original question, why do I do what I do? So the allopathic world was take a reading, blood pressure. Is it normal? Yes or no. If it's not, here's a drug, because they won't 9 times out of 10 talk about lifestyle. But if they do, bless their hearts, they're going the right direction. If they don't, which is 9 times out of 10, here's a medication that will lower your blood pressure. If they don't talk about the McDonald's you just ate, then they're not solving the problem.
Right,
They're giving you a pharmacological agent that will chemically fool your body into lowering the pressure by vasodilating, right? So it lowers the actual pressure if they open up the tube. And so did that fix the problem? So no, it didn't. So you eat McDonald's for another 5 years. Now you need more. Now your blood pressure responds to that because you didn't change your lifestyle. Now your blood pressure medication is not working any longer because you didn't change the root cause. So they double your dose. They try other aspects. And now you're still having all these negative cardiovascular risk. What's the number one reason people die in the United States today?
Coronary heart disease. Yep.
Yeah. So how many people? Over 600, 800,000 a year.
Every 83 seconds, somebody's dying of coronary heart disease. Every 83 seconds in America.
So if that's the number one cause, and we keep pumping people with pharmacological agents, like, man, we're sure failing. We're sure failing as a country.
I know we talked about it a little bit ago, but because I wasn't going to bring it up, but because you just brought this up, I'll share the story from yesterday with the cardiac nurse that just became my client. She says, Nick, the reason I sign up with you is because I have issues that our doctors can't fix. They're just telling me, whatever, go see a therapist or whatever's going on. And she said, I was infuriated, Nick, because I've listened to all your podcasts and I love your approach. You're functional. You're dealing with root causes. You're reversing. She said, there was a man that walked into our hospital and me and the doctor were evaluating him. He's 520 pounds. And the doctor walks back in with his labs and goes, hey, your heart looks great, and sends him out of the office, out of the hospital. And she goes, I was infuriated because what we just told that man is, hey, your heart's fine. Keep doing what you're doing. And we're not addressing the fact that this man is 520 pounds. And so is that man going to fall under that? Okay, your heart situation is fine on blood work now, but blood work, the problem is, especially even with blood work, is I know people that actually have ended up getting into Hashimoto's, that you actually have had Hashimoto's issues for 8 years, but it takes about, for the thyroid, it takes about 7 to 9 years for it to show up on blood work. I've seen things with diabetes and insulin resistance at the cellular level where their cholesterol will be high, but their insulin's fine, their A1C is fine. And at the cellular level, it can take up to 3 years for that resistance to show up on a blood work marker. And I'm like, we just miss common sense where we're like, oh, your heart's fine, but oh, let's just ignore the fact that you are literally the size of 3 human beings in one. But we'll let that go. Whenever you come back, then we can prescribe you something. But it's unbelievable.
Or were they already on a medication and their heart looked good when they were on the medication, right?
Exactly. That's very possible too.
Which is fine on paper, but you're absolutely right. This isn't the way we need to treat a human. We need to figure out a better way to help this person than send them on the way with the high five.
The thing is, this is why I want to get deep into the nervous system, because I want people to see why this applies to them. A lot of people don't connect this because they are just not aware, and I want to bring that awareness. But even with the chiropractic, I know that you and I have talked about you wanting to either send people my way or whatever, because they're like, hey, they need to lose 60 pounds to loosen up their spine and to get this, that, and the other better. But one of the things that really hit me when it came to chiropractic, I've loved chiropractic for years, but I loved it for the obvious reason. Oh, I get an adjustment and I feel better and whatever. But really what's going on behind the scenes with the nervous system, I never knew until I got really deep into the stuff that I do now. And when I was dealing with my gut issues and I had SIBO, H. pylori, gut dysbiosis, I had messed up pancreatic enzymes, bile from the liver, I had an overdriven immune system, I had an autoimmune disease, I had IBD, I had all these different things that we completely reversed. But during this time, I'm doing nonstop research because no gastro can help me. Nobody's helping me with anything. And I learned very quickly about parasympathetic and sympathetic, which is, for the viewers, your nervous system has 2 states, parasympathetic state and sympathetic state. We always want to be parasympathetic. If you go sympathetic acutely, like stress from a workout or whatever, that's fine, but we want the body to resolve back to parasympathetic. And so if you have a gut issue, anybody that has a gut issue is automatically sympathetic because the parasympathetic is rest and digest. That's what it's known as. So I started having all these people with gut issues, thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, cortisol issues. All of those are stress markers, right? So all of those automatically fall under sympathetic. So you want to get to parasympathetic so the gut can heal, the cortisol and adrenals can heal, the Hashimoto's markers can come into remission, and God willing, actually even go completely undetectable in the blood work. But all these different things. And one of the top things, other than just your daily basic lifestyle needs that need to be addressed, one of the top things that I came across in my studies was chiropractic. It puts your body into a parasympathetic state, which is the goal for any mom between 30 and 55 that's stressed out because of kids, lack of sleep, their blood works are getting off, their hormones are improper, they're not having the sex drive, they're not having the energy. Anybody with gut issues, which is 95% of America right now, people with insulin resistance, weight loss resistance, like if you have any of these issues, this is for you right now. Number one, talk about, without going too deep into the science, because we'll lose the people because they don't understand the science of it. But number one, how does chiropractic help you move into the parasympathetic, and what is that going to do for you?
Yeah, so this is the way I explain it to my patients. We need both. You need both. Okay, so remember, the power that made the body heals. The body is the most absolute, brilliant, intelligent thing that exists on this planet, and the reason we don't have bad cholesterol, right?
I agree.
What is that? Do you think our body makes something bad? Okay, it's responding to something. Now, we don't have sympathetics isn't inherently bad, nor is parasympathetics inherently good. What you need is both. The thing is, you need them both under control and regulated. For instance, if fight, you said it, fight or flight. So if you're being chased by a lion, do you want your parasympathetics? No. You need that blood. So parasympathetics are rest and digest, as you said. If you need to be in fight and flight, you need to be in fight and flight. Okay. Agreed. What that does is that slows down the blood that goes to your visceral, your stomach, your digestive system. It actually increases the blood to your heart and lungs because you're ready to run or fight. It actually is going to increase the blood to your musculoskeletal system, so you can pump, so you can push, so you can run, so you can kick, so you can box, so you can fight, so you can protect, right? If you're hunting, if you're trying to bring home a deer or a lion, if you will. So it's so cool because those nerves actually control where blood goes. So if you're in sympathetic state, you're not digesting well. But if you're in a parasympathetic state, you're digesting well. So I think of them like this. I think of them as the gas and the brake on a car.
Yeah.
The gas is the gas pedal. You need that to move, but you also need the brake to stop and slow down at the red light. You need both on a car. But as well, you cannot push the gas and the brake at the same time. You will have a dysfunctioning car. So you need both at different times of your day and life, and you need to be able to turn on one and turn off the other. Okay, so why would we, okay, let me tell you about the problem, which you nailed it already, is the problem is, as Americans, as humans in general, probably American, I'll stick to America, we're over-sympathetically loaded.
Yeah.
And how does that happen? Number one, it's our thoughts. And that comes from stuff that we see, we read, we hear. So that's stressful. Our president just got shot in the ear, almost died. Stressful, or let me see, not president, or president in running, or past president, or the inflation, or there's a war, or Russia, Ukraine, or my finances, or
marriage. Just the American dream that we always have to go further and further. It's just that concept of thinking that you always got to keep going.
Not only that, but just what we devour in our social media, in our life, in our vision. Not only that, okay, let's just get to some simple, real examples. Have you ever driven down the road and cop lights in your backs? You feel your palms get sweaty, your eyes dilate, your heart's beating, you're all nervous, you're pissed. What did I do? Oh crap.
Yeah.
But then listen, the cop goes right by you. That wasn't for you. So what the hell just happened? You had a sympathetic response to a thought, to a light that was behind your head, behind your car, but it was a thought that you effed up, that you're getting a ticket, that I was speeding. So you can also just think about, oh man, I got a vacation coming, I got to do this, and this is going to be a really good thing, but I'm all stressed out because so these thought, nothing ever happened, but the thought alone can release sympathetics. Okay, so your thought, right? Now, how do you stimulate parasympathetics to directly answer your question? You have to control the thoughts, of course, but rest, digest. Now, prayer, meditation, yoga, actually like post exercise, after you do sympathetics, you go into parasympathetics,
Yeah.
sleep, right?
Real
Good
breathing.
quality sleep,
Real breathing.
breathing.
Oxygenation. I'm very big on oxygenation because that is what the mitochondria use
They
to
want.
actually burn up food. Literally, such an underestimated concept.
Yeah, so the list is long. So let's get it right into my profession, which is chiropractic. Every level of the vertebrae has nerves that go out to control these beautiful processes from the brain to the body, these nerves that are exiting the spine. And that spine is misaligned. It's going to either cause too much stimulus or not enough stimulus of certain regions, which again go to certain organs. So T1 to T3 is the heart and lungs. So if that organ, if that bone is misaligned, T1 to T3, you can have dysfunction to the heart and lungs. Now up high, C1, C2, occiput here, up high, has a nerve called the vagus nerve. It has a lot of parasympathetics, but the vagus nerve is massive in the sense of its responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a parasympathetic tract that controls all, it's the brake on our car that controls the heart, the lungs, all the digestive systems. So we need our heart to speed up if you're running, but you also need it to come down, right? And different nerves control those processes. You don't just turn on the sympathetic and then stop the sympathetic when you want the heart to slow down. That's not how it works. You turn on the sympathetic, but you turn on the parasympathetic to slow down. So you need them both. Okay.
So it's not about going parasympathetic. It's about regulating the immune system to be able to be flexible on both.
Boom. Yep. You got it. Oh, that was fun.
I know. I don't know why it does that. Whenever I do this too, it'll do like a thumbs up. It's crazy. It seems crazy
Yeah,
now.
I like that. I've never seen that. So you need both. So you need to be go back and forth and both on demand, really. If I want to sleep, I need to be able to pull it down. If I'm getting ready for a conference or getting ready for a great talk like this, I need to be able to get all fired up. So I'm in a sympathetic state. I'm not hungry right now, but
Yeah.
in an hour from now, I want lunch. I need to be able to, all right, let's chill out. Let's eat. You know what I mean? So how does chiropractic fall? When you stimulate the vagus nerve by the chiropractic adjustment, by adjusting C1, occiput C1, C2, it stimulates the vagus nerve to turn on digestion. And that's why the number one thing I'll hear after the first cervical adjustment that night, that patient 9 times out of 10 is going to sleep like a baby. They always come back and say, Doc, I came in for my back pain and my arm pain, but man, I sure slept like a baby last night.
Yeah.
Thank you. I said, yeah, because we stimulated I don't say parasympathetic, but we stimulated the nerves that create relaxation. And now you're going to be in a better healing state because we soften that, we increase parasympathetic, soften the sympathetics, and you're more regulated.
This is so fascinating for a couple reasons for me. So I'm like a big dude on patterns. I notice patterns. It's why I learn so quickly. I just notice patterns. That's all I do. I have nothing special. I just know patterns. And there's two things. So number one, with my practice, I don't just write your nutrition pro. I do everything. I deal with their whole life. And then I'm also a pastor. So I'm constantly on Zoom dealing with their stress, managing boundaries in their life. Because 9 times out of 10, all the moms I deal with, or even the dads, their stress is because they don't have boundaries in their life. Hey, no, when you're off work, put your phone away, your clients can't hit you up, or you have boundaries with your family. Like you have to have boundaries in life or you're screwed. And so, within my practice, part of the stuff that I'm doing is I'm writing basically lifestyle prescriptions, if you will. And one of those things is, hey, I need you to go get x-rays. I need you to see if there's anything going on with the spine. Talk to a professional. If you want a recommendation, depending on what city you're in, I can find one because of the connections I have. And I want you getting chiropractic adjustment because that's part of what's going to help the nervous system get back to regulation to allow you to come back into a parasympathetic and so forth. So I'm utilizing all the encapsulating natural concepts to be able to do this. But the reason this is interesting is the reason like people like me emphasize parasympathetic so much is because everybody is always sympathetically dominant, right?
That's right. 100%.
But it's not it's the same thing with cholesterol. The reason that we always emphasize good cholesterol is because everyone always has high of the LDL, which therefore comes as bad cholesterol. But there's no such thing as a bad cholesterol. It has a job to shuttle nutrients into the cell. It's just it's too high. It's because you have inflammation and too much stuff going on, and that's what it gets viewed as. Same thing with the sympathetic state. It gets viewed as the bad state, but it's just because we're always in it. And so for me, I'm always trying to get people back to parasympathetic, but it's fascinating that it's not about parasympathetic. It's about regulation between the two. And the reason that's fascinating is because every single disease on the earth is metabolic. What is metabolic? What does that mean? It's the mitochondria being able to switch from burning sugar to fat and back and forth. I eat a sugar meal within 60 minutes, I should be burning ketones. It's the flexibility of going back and forth, and the lack thereof is where every single disease on earth begins. So it's not about going to, teaching how to burn fat or how to burn sugar. It's about being flexible with both. And that's the same thing you're saying with what the nervous system is. It's not about one or the other. It's about being nervous system flexible or metabolically flexible, for the lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think of it like, and you're 100% right. I love it. The way I've always been processed is it's how do we adapt to our environment?
Yeah.
How do we adapt? Are we adapting well to the stimuluses in our earth? Now, to our stimulus in our environment, to our mind, are we adapting? Not all stress is bad, but we need to manage stress. We need stress, good stress, bad stress. But we don't want to let stress overload us and our emotions in our lives. Now you're not sleeping. Now you're not working out. Now you're gaining weight. Now you got cortisol. So of course, how are you adapting? How are you switching back and forth? Can you digest and process both? So I think of the body as a machine, and it means much more than that, of course. But if you give it the right fuel, you're going to do well. If you treat the machine, you're going to do well. If you have the right mindset and concept in your brain and in your heart, and you have community and you sleep, right? So I have these 5 aspects of health we teach. Of course, what you put in your mouth is number 1. How you move, exercise is number 2. Number 3 is how you manage stress, which is getting back to your sympathetic conversation. Number 4 is community and being involved and have relationships. And number 5 is nervous system management. And part of that is chiropractic.
That's hilarious, because I have, it'll be in the book that I write on this, but I have the 6 pillars of Eden lifestyle, and it goes with the first 4 that you just said. It's the nutrition, it's the exercise or body. I don't actually call it exercise. I just say body movement. However you move, that's gardening, whatever it is. Body movement. How you said stress management. Mine is actually faith-based with stress management, because a lot of times that perspective goes with whatever spiritual mindset you may or may not have. The 4th thing is environment or community, like you said. And then you said your 5th one was nervous system.
I tie that to chiropractic, but nervous system, exactly.
But my 5th and 6th one is hydration, and my 6th one is oxygenation. So it's interesting that out of the 6 that I have, 4 of them are right with what you have, and then the last one really goes with really all of those in so many ways. But
your last one could be really what you're putting in your mouth, like breathing. It could be within ingestion, and breathing and digest. What are you eating? What are you breathing? So,
what's interesting about the stress stuff, how you talk about it, you're absolutely right. Like, our body doesn't create a bad hormone. Like, cortisol is not a bad hormone. It's actually anti-inflammatory. It's needed. But the thing, like, okay, so on blue zones, me and you have talked about that all the time. It's why I was moving to Greece to live in the blue zone, Ikaria, Greece, and all that kind of stuff. Is the past 3 days, I just rewatched the whole series of Blue Zones again for the 5th time in 8 weeks, because I'm always picking up new things that I didn't grasp. And to me, it's just, I love that show. I'm obsessed with it. And one of the things they talk about in Greece is they go deep on that Netflix series. They go deep on, there's a scientist that comes on there, and she explains what stress does to your body. She explains it in a more simple way than I do, how, she says your blood glucose spikes. It does that because glucagon, and I can go into that, but whatever. But she said, it's not that the Icarians in Greece don't experience stress. They do experience daily stress that we experience, but they don't experience it on such a chronic level. And he said the reason they don't is they go to work, they do all that stuff, but they have an off button where they're done with work by 2 or 3, and they put that work stuff away, and they Don't focus on, hey, how do I make more money? They say, oh, okay, I have enough to pay my bills. Now let me go focus on happy hour at 4 p.m. where I can have community and hang out with my friends and enjoy myself and this, that, and the other. They don't live in the chronic state. So it's not that sympathetic's bad or parasympathetic's good. It's not that stress is bad or this, that, or the other. It's the chronic living in it that we constantly are living in the United States that is probably the greatest differentiator, apart from the fact that our food supply sucks from a mainstream level. But that is I think, a very overtaking concept that we live in, is that the stress is just chronic on our end, unfortunately. But stress in and of itself is not bad.
Nick, you tied it back to what we were just talking about 2 minutes ago. And here's the word: balance.
Yep.
You want to balance your sympathetics, you want to balance your parasympathetics, you want to balance your hormones, you want to balance your lifestyle to where you can let things go at 5 o'clock and go from here to here.
Yeah.
You got to, if you're overworked all the time, like you're talking about, then of course you're gonna be stressed out. If you can't let go, if you don't have a community, you don't exercise, you don't go play tennis. And I don't talk about chiropractic when I'm playing tennis. I don't talk about tennis when I'm doing chiropractic, right? They're two different parts of my life that I want separate. And because I'm trying to create balance, right? And it's all what we're saying. It's just, you need both, but you got to be able to go back and forth.
What Deion Sanders says is, he says, where your feet are, that's where I need you to be. If you're at home, don't bring work to your home and don't bring home to your work. Yeah. Wherever your feet are, that's where you got to be. And the thing that I always talk about with this, because we're talking about the nervous system, which you can't talk about the nervous system and not talk about stress. They're peanut butter and jelly, the two concepts. As far as whether you're stressed or controlling it, that's all so nervous system influenced and or influencing the nervous system. And so what we were just talking about, I think a big thing that we miss in the United States, and number one, it's what I've had to address the last 3 months that has changed my life, but it's what I have to address with my clients all the time, is this one word, and it blows people's minds. It's the word boundaries. Like, I used to have no boundaries in my business. Like, you can even ask my parents. This past Mother's Day, months ago, whenever that was, 5 months ago or something, I didn't even celebrate Mother's Day with my mom. We were in Kerrville, where your mom lives, and my brother and all that kind of stuff. We were there, and I had clients blowing me up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I literally have to drive back to Houston to take care of this, that. I did not even get to celebrate Mother's Day. And that was a big wake-up call for me, because I've been doing that for 10 years and I was finally fed up. And I was like, no, this is not right. So me and my business coach and everything else, we started talking about boundaries. And that has literally not only saved my business, it's saved my life. It's actually caused me to be able to scale at a whole new level where, people they know very well about me that when 5 p.m. Friday hits, I am unreachable until Monday, 8 a.m. You cannot reach me. In fact, this phone is not even on me all Saturday. From Friday sundown to Saturday sundown for Shabbat, it's not even in the same room as me ever. And I have these different boundaries with how I manage different things and this, that, and the other. And because of that, I don't have the stress that I once had. My clients know when they need to update me. If you update me past 9 a.m. on your update day, guess what? You don't get an update that week. There's 50 of you, there's one of me. And that's just how you have to. I've always told people, whenever it comes to your kids, whenever it comes to your spouses, when it comes to your jobs, you've got to manage that. And I feel like that would help so many people with this nervous system dysregulation that's going on, but also getting in the chiropractic and doing all those things well. But you've got to manage the lifestyle of some sort.
Yeah, that's gold right there, Nick, because I agree with you. You got to be able to, you got to stay in your lane, be present, connect with your family. And I catch myself all the time. I'm thinking about the office, but I need to be with my kids, or I pull out social media, but I need to be with my kids. I'm not present with them. And it can be distracting, especially with Facebook, Instagram, everything. All it's like, why am I spending time with 1,000 of these people I don't really know or met 20 years ago, but my loving family's right here, and my attention's not with them. I'm with these random people on social media. It's very toxic. It's a way, very much so, a way to drive a wedge between relationships. And whenever that phone comes out, but what you're saying is golden, Nick. So I hope your listeners take that to. And I've seen books written about boundaries, right? So Dave Ramsey has a good book. I think it's called Boundaries, or something in that. And it's about how to talk to a mother-in-law, how to talk to a family member, how to connect within your family about, hey, I need you to be here. I don't need you to be here. And I got I'm going to do it my way because I'm an adult. Da, da, da. So it's interesting, but that's golden. Another way I think people can manage stress, because this is sympathetic, which we want to try to manage, right? Is I'm constantly going back to the brain because I believe it controls all processes. And so there's going to be a thought that comes into your mind and your listener's mind today, even, that creates a sympathetic response. And maybe a question that should be asked after that thought is, maybe you're driving down the road, if you will, and this thought comes up. The question should be, can I control it? Can I do anything about this? Can I do anything about this right now? Right now, if it's I'm late for work, or crap, I didn't take the meat out of the freezer, or not ready for dinner, or election interference. You cannot control election interference today. Okay. If that raises your blood pressure, that squirts out a little bit of cortisol, if that dilates your pupil even microscopically, those are the stressors that we need to be able to let wash right off.
I literally, Brian, I kid you not. I just was talking with two of my clients yesterday that they're a married couple, they're pastors. And I said, listen, in my years of experience, I have noticed we stress over two things, and neither of them actually need to be having stress. The first one is we may be stressing about things we need to do, in which case we don't need to stress. We just need to do our part. Just do your job. Just do better. If that's in your hands, stop. You're stressing because you just haven't been doing your crap.
Right.
Be self-leadership. Stop sleeping in. Wake up on time. Do your part. The second thing is what you just said, and it's where 9 times out of 10 it's always stressing, especially with the moms that I deal with, is they are stressing over things and people that they cannot control because it's outcome based. You are not in control of the outcome. You can't control that thing. And that's where I talk about spirituality and fit and stress management. They're actually the same point in my book. Is the outcome, like in my perspective, it's my job to do the work. The outcome is up to God. What that person does, how they treat me, how they respond to what I just sent or what I did or whatever, that's not up to me. I can't control that. And you're stressing over something you can't control, like you just said, exactly what I tell people all the time.
Another tip, I actually chuckle because I always remember the story. It's about perspective. We went on a cruise. Actually, I was with my aunt and my uncle, your parents, and we were on this cruise with my wife and kids.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Maybe 5 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're in Jamaica. And we're only there for the day. The boat lands and we leave that evening. But we're in the Jamaica. So we get to the dock, we get on the bus, and the guy's the local Jamaican, he's talking and he's telling us this and that, and he's a funny guy and he's working the crowd. And he said this several times on the bus ride to the beach, to this destination. I think it was a beach, and we're coming back. And he says, in Jamaica, we don't have problems. We have situations.
Wow.
And I'm like, that is so deep.
Dude,
it's so funny. It's a one-liner, and it's oh, you chuckle, but if you actually try to think about that and digest that, it's actually profoundly inspirational, because what he's saying, it's all mindset, it's all perceived thing. It's like, I don't have a problem. I have a situation we're going to navigate through. I don't have a problem. I have an opportunity to solve an issue. I have an opportunity to learn. I have an opportunity to grow. What you're calling a problem, I'm calling an opportunity to improve whatever this scenario is. And so, it's like, boom, man, if we just thought about, this is a situation, this is an opportunity to create growth, not,
awesome.
Oh, fuck, how am I going to get through this weekend with this something rather? And so it's just perception of the situation, understanding that you're the only reason it's a problem because you're calling it a problem. You're having a hormonal response to that thought, and you can change that hormonal response by thinking about it differently.
And really what it always is it's an opportunity to refine your character, because it's going to expose how you respond to any given situation, which really exposes your weak points. So when you go through those situations, that is an opportunity for you to behave in a way that was not expected, or it would be understood if you said, no, you stressed out or whatever. I love that. That is all perspective. Everything is just a circumstance. It's just a situation that's in front of me that now I get to figure out, Oh, like Denzel Washington one time said, "Oh, you have a serious problem on your hands? Man, what an opportunity you have." That's exactly what he says. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, that's awesome. So to land this plane, I want to send people forth with my signature on it, saying, "Hey, listen, I am all about chiropractic." In fact, I don't even know if you know this because I didn't reach out to you for it. I reached out to your assistants. Is I actually have an appointment with you, I think tomorrow. But anyway, I'm very big on chiropractic. I used to do it like 3 times a week, and now I'm really wanting to get back to 2 to 3 times a week. It's huge for parasympathetic release and sympathetic, all those different things, managing and balancing that flexibility, if you will. But let's give some practical steps to close out real quick, just so people can leave with, okay, I know chiropractic is absolutely needed. They've never really heard me talk too publicly about this. So now they're really hearing, man, Nick is endorsing this. Nick's pushing this on his clients as well. How many times, how often should people be in the with a chiropractor, getting an adjustment and doing those things to make sure that, because one of the things I've actually noticed with clients and this, that, and the other, when they get adjusted, all of a sudden they can go take a crap. They couldn't take a crap. They were constipated. So you said the sleep one earlier, but I've seen it over and over again where all of a sudden now they can go to the restroom. And that's so many of the clients that come to me, they are constipated. And that's the reason why they come to me.
Yeah, because parasympathetic is controlled rest and digest, and we turn them on by adjusting in this case, would be the lower sacrum, basically sacrum, tailbone. You're going to stimulate that movement. So the answer to your question is how long, how often, how much? No, it really depends on your goals and where you're at in your health journey. And symptoms do matter. And are you not doing things in your life because of symptoms? In other words, I need to lose 60 pounds, but it hurts when I go for a run or a walk or a bike on my back. And so I can't lose 60 pounds. All right, you're in a what I'll call crisis care. We need to get you stable. We need to get you out of pain so you can work on your health goals, which is losing weight in this case with you, Nick. But maybe you're an athlete and you don't have any pain and you want to just make sure your system is refined and tuned up, fine tuning, right? Okay, well, that's a different frequency than the first example. So the real answer is get a consultation, listen to the practitioner. We all practice a little different. You might be in Texas, you might be in Maryland, and you're going to find a different chiropractor that recommend a little bit different. It's going to be generally the same, I hope, and which is get them stable, get them some maintenance. Stability is out of pain, feeling good, functioning well, and then we tail it off to maintenance. Stability in my office or crisis care or pain management type care is 3 times a week. 3 times a week for how long? Depends on the patient. Maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 if they're real jacked up. Okay. And then we do different things. We obviously do the chiropractic adjustment, which is to stimulate the nervous system. We also have a decompression treatment for disc herniations and sciatica type symptoms. That's another pain management model. But 3 times a week for a certain amount of time is very typical. It's just like physical therapy. How often should I go to my physical therapist? Obviously, listen to what they say and go by the recommendations, but 3 times a week would not surprise me if you're in a therapist office. Same thing with working out in the gym. So 3 times a week is really if you're in any type of symptoms. If you're not, I recommend maintenance care. That's what I get. I don't hurt. I get adjusted at least twice a month. Some months 3 or 4 times if I have that availability in my schedule. So 1 to 4 times a month, I would say, is maintenance.
Yeah.
8 to 12 times a month is more frequent, obviously, because you're trying to get out of that symptomatic zone and into a pain-free zone. And of course, when you're in pain, you're obviously in sympathetics, but usually that's the area that you're choking off the nerve that supplies, for instance, the colon, which was in your example. So I hope that helped your crowd. It's not an easy answer. It depends on where that patient is.
Well, yeah,
and what their goals are, where they're at in their life. Also, what their spine looks like. If their spine's all jacked up and they only have a 1 out of 10 on pain level, I'll be like, I know you don't hurt very much, but we need to be way more aggressive than once a month because you're here and we need to get you here, you know?
So the best answer then is, hey, chiropractic is needed in every one of our lives. How that looks is different. So your best option is find a chiropractor near you and get a game plan. And that game plan may be once a month. It may be once a week. It may be 3 times a week. But either way, it's absolutely critical. It's absolutely needed, whether you're trying to fix up, whether you're trying to rebalance your nervous system, whether you're trying to keep everything maintenance. Either way.
I couldn't have said it better. You nailed it.
Everybody, so all of you guys need it. We all need it. So go to a chiropractor and get a game plan, get your nervous system regulated, especially if you're in the United States and you're having all these symptoms of what really stress is inducing upon you. And then, Brian, actually, I want you to tell them what your Instagram is to be able to follow you, see your stories and content. Because one thing now that I'm here, guys, y'all know me, I'm like social media. I'm now pushing Brian out of his comfort zone because the dude is a wealth of knowledge, but I want that knowledge to get out of his brain and I want it to get onto the screen so that it can really help people. So I'm really pushing him to push more of that. And he's already started doing that. So follow his stuff because he's constantly daily pushing out content just to help you guys, little tidbits, this, that, and the other. Brian, how can they follow you? What is your page?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Because I'm older than you, and my generation, I'm just not as in tune to how important that is, and it is so important just to communicate and educate. And so, yeah, it's Smoot Chiro. My last name's Smoot, Smoot Chiro, Chiro. That's my Instagram. We have a Facebook as well. Smoot Chiropractic. SmootFamilyChiropractic.com is the website. Let me say that again. Smoot Chiropractic is the website. The Facebook is Smoot Family Chiropractic, which is the actual name of the business. But you can Google us or Instagram and love to have followers. So awesome.
Yeah. And y'all can also catch them on my page. Y'all, if you're following Team Muscle Gym or if you're following Lifestyle of Eden, I share his stuff on my stories now that I'm out here and I actually follow him and everything else. You guys just continue to catch into his stuff, the content, my stuff and the content, the game plan that I'm about to work out with him to help get me fixed up in any areas that I may or may not need it, that I do or do not know about, or maintenance I'm going to keep y'all posted on. But I hope that this really helps on the nervous system. I don't want us to shy away from the reality of it because you're not going to hear it in the conventional medicine world. And I'm going to be honest with you, however you get the nervous system regulated, that is generally the key to your healing, whether you're dealing with an autoimmune disease, a gut issue, adrenal dysfunction, PCOS, all these things with the nervous system. When you have all this stuff, it causes inflammation, which messes with you at the cellular level. Then it messes with your mitochondria. Then it's metabolic dysfunction. Then it leads to disease. So the nervous system in many ways can be actually traced to the root of all of these things. So let's go ahead and focus more on that. I'm excited to dive deeper in that. And you know what I may actually even have you do, Brian, too. And obviously we can talk about this offline and everything, but I am always posting every third on my Lifestyle of Eden Facebook group. I have content Monday through Friday that I post every single day, Monday through Friday, and then I do weekends off. But Thursday is always a short blog. It's 3 little paragraphs on whatever I'm talking on. Like I think the last 2 weeks I was doing adrenal dysfunction part 1 and then part 2 and then autoimmune disease part, whatever. So I'm always doing little things. Is having like interesting concepts on the need for chiropractic just in three little things, 3 little paragraphs, or the nervous system. That stuff may be very interesting for people and why it's necessary. So we can figure out all that stuff and collaborate. But this has been awesome. And I thank you for joining me today. And man, I just know that it really helped a lot of the followers and viewers.
Thanks, Nick, man. It's been fun. We'll talk soon. Get you adjusted soon. Tuned up.
Absolutely. Thank you, viewers, for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out at lifestyleofeden@gmail.com or my Instagram or my Facebook, and we'll get you set up. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care.